Joining me now, ranking member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. Good evening, Congressman.
Good evening, Ari. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. I know it's a busy time for you, and you have been a part of this from the beginning and, of course, tracking these developments today. Your thoughts on what it means to see this big step in the deal, Iran basically getting authorized approval of the fact that it is disarming part of this program, as well as the release of these Americans?
Well, I think it's a very significant step. Iran's now shipped out about 98% of its enriched uranium. It's poured concrete in the core of the reactor at Arak. It's taken many thousands, over 12,000 centrifuges offline and mothballed them. So basically, the IAEA has confirmed it's taken the steps that it was supposed to take. It is following the requirements of the deal, and I think that's a positive start. We're certainly going to have to continue to monitor this like a hawk. We're going to be using all of our intelligence capabilities as well as the IAEA inspections to make sure that they comply with every letter of the deal, but I think this is very positive.
What is the theory of the case there, Congressman, for what you just said, which is that this is working, but the U.S. has to be vigilant? Is the theory that this is a big step for some of the details you just cited, but that it could still be a long game con where they do this, so you think they're following the rules, and then in some other time period, they actually start trying to obtain a nuclear capability?
Well, we can't tell what their long-term intentions are, and even if their long-term intention at the was to fully comply with the deal, that doesn't mean that they don't have a change politically and decide to turn against the deal down the road. So we're going to have to be very vigilant. But I think the positive news today is that Iran had a breakout time of a matter of weeks or short months up until it took these steps. Now its breakout time, if it decided tomorrow to develop the bomb, has gone to more than a year.
Can you define breakout time for us?
Breakout time would be the time it would take Iran effectively to have enough enriched material to develop the bomb. There's an additional breakout time in terms of developing the technology, the bomb itself. But the enrichment time was down to a matter of weeks before this deal was agreed to, before the interim deal was agreed to. That's now been extended to more than a year. So that's very significant. And if they comply with the agreement, that means that they'll be more than a year away from that breakout time for the next 10 to 15 years. So it's very important in terms of making it much more difficult for Iran ultimately to get the bomb. But we are going to have to watch them like a hawk. They have a history of playing rope-a-dope with inspectors, of trying to cheat around the margins.
Right.
And we're going to have to make sure that doesn't happen.
Congressman, you look at this, by all estimations, this has been a very long-term diplomatic process. If you look to a decade ago, the United States has a completely different footing here with Iran. Do you credit that most to Secretary Clinton, who began the thaw, or to Secretary Kerry, who is finishing this right now?
Well, I think both Secretary Clinton and Secretary Kerry, as well as the President, deserve credit for making this even possible, and taking the risk, frankly, to give this negotiated outcome a chance. There's no risk-free solution here. It certainly wouldn't be risk-free if we were going to use the military option to stop Iran's nuclear program. But there are risks associated with a negotiated outcome as well. So they both deserve a lot of credit for that. At the same time, we have to be realistic. This isn't going to change the nature of the regime overnight. They're still propping up Bashar Assad. They're still threatening Israel. They're still literally shooting shots across the bow of our ships. We saw how they treated our sailors that were taken. And the hostages that they released today, they never should have taken to begin with. So this is a regime that's not monolithic. We're going to see positive steps like the implementation we're seeing today, but we're also going to see a lot of negative and nefarious work in the region that we're going to have to work to confront and contain.
And Congressman, this is all happening so fast. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but just within the last hour, some response pouring in from Republican candidates for president, the theme being, well, this should have happened a lot earlier. The president's a bad negotiator. How do you view those comments? Do you think there's any merit to them, or do you see it as a sign of political weakness, that the best thing they can say is this is good but late?
Well, I think that if you look at what the GOP candidates have been saying all along, they're, I think, constitutionally incapable of saying anything positive either about the president or about the direction of the country. So it's not at all surprising. But, I think it's very similar to what you see them talk about with respect to Syria. They have a lot of criticism for the president. But when you ask them, okay, what would you do differently, they're very hesitant to set out what, in fact, they would do. So nothing apart from the ordinary course of affairs, I'm afraid.
All right. Adam Schiff, Congressman from California, thank you very much for joining us.
You bet.